Alright, shrimp peeps, how often should we feed our shrimp? In my case, I keep cherry shrimp, but for the vast majority, their eating habits are going to be the same. But this depends on a few factors. Let's get right into it. So you're going to have your shrimp, let's use 10-gallon tanks for example. You're going to have shrimp in a 10-gallon species-only tank that's heavily planted, maybe a dirted tank. You're going to have a 10-gallon shrimp tank that's species-only, but it's not very heavily planted. You got more rocks and driftwood and stuff like that in there. And you're going to have a 10-gallon tank with shrimp in it that also has tank mates. Say maybe you have some betas in with it or some small tetras or something like that. Let's talk about all three of these. I'll tell you how you want to feed them in these situations, and at the end I'll tell you my favorite food to feed my shrimp. Let's jump right in.
Like this and like that and like this and like this. Like this.
So starting at the top and going to the bottom, the 10-gallon heavily planted dirted tank with species only, shrimp only tank. Now I keep cherry shrimp, but like I said, generally their feeding habits are gonna be the same. So in a tank like this, you're really not gonna have to feed them that much, because shrimp will find the food that they need in their tank. They love to munch on plant leaves. They love to munch on. I see mine kneading through malm all the time, finding food. Even when the food that you have fed them breaks down, they work on that, especially if you have snails in the mix, which is usually inevitable unless you really go through your plants and everything that you put in the tank with a fine-tooth comb. They usually end up all in there anyways, and they help clean the tank. But in this kind of setup, maybe once a week, in my opinion, because especially when you have smaller tanks, the less you feed, the better. But if you do have a heavily planted tank, that really kind of filters the tank itself and takes care of those issues anyways, but you still never want to overfeed. That's always a recipe for disaster. Now let's talk about scenario number 2, the 10-gallon species-only shrimp tank, but maybe not so heavily planted. Let's say in this setup you have maybe 1 or 2 plants, you have some driftwood in there, mostly rocks, some sand. You're gonna want to feed this setup a little bit more often, maybe a couple times a week. And it's also all depends on how many shrimp you have in your tank. If you have a lot of shrimp, you're gonna have to feed a little bit more. If you don't have so much, maybe 15-20 shrimp in there, you can get away with feeding a couple times a week, because there is less in this tank for them to find to eat. There's less leaves to eat, but they will scavenge and they will find things to eat. But so I would recommend a couple times a week for a more desolate planted tank. Let's talk about that third setup, where it's a 10-gallon tank that has maybe tank mates in there, like a small tetras, ember tetras, serpate tetras, things like this. And in that setup, I would say you need to feed definitely 2 times a week, maybe 3, because now they're in competition with other fish. There's other fish in the tank eating the food, so there might not be too much left behind, but keep in mind, there's always something left behind. And they're going to find it, and they're going to eat it. Now also in this situation, maybe you have more plants. In that case, you can feed less. If you have less plants, maybe a little bit more. But these guys will find any and everything and munch on it. So the point is, in all 3 of these scenarios, is you really don't need to feed shrimp that much. Just take it easy. They'll be okay. Now, let me talk about what my favorite food to feed fish, or my shrimp, are. Now, I haven't tried them all, but I do like Extreme Aquatic shrimpy pellets, and I like to put 2 or 3 pellets. I'll sprinkle it around the entirety of the tank, so all the shrimp have a chance to go around and find some and eat it. In my setup, I might do that once a week, and that's it. But I've got, as you've seen in the video clip, fairly decent plants in there for a 10-gallon tank, and it's only getting lusher because I have the organic soil that's really making these plants grow really nice and lush. So any malm that's left over, they're always kneading in it and cleaning it up. They're super colorful, they're happy, they're healthy, and that's just coming from my experience. So let me know what you thought of this video, if it was helpful. That's my favorite part about making videos, when people give me comments and I did find it helpful, like I woke up to this morning. And and if you guys have any tips and tricks for feeding shrimp and have experience to share, by all means, please share. That's what my channel is all about. I love learning along with you guys. And so you guys have a good week coming up. Be safe, and I'll see you next video.